Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ladies and gents and the ladies. Welcome to another edition, Running with WARR, NBA Preview, Part 2. I'm your host, Joshua M. Hicks, WARR Media Senior Writer. We got Drew on the line, one of the runners from the beginning. And we're going to be three-man weaving this mug with one of the original WARR Media members, mentor to us, killing it in the game as the NBA insider. He's been on all types of networks, but right now he is currently representing the Bally Sports. Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, the myth, the legend. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good. How you doing, man? That's quite an introduction. You could just call me Brandon, or just don't call me late for dinner.
Well, a special person gives a special introduction, my brother. You mean a lot to Rio Rico Radio and to the group as a whole, and us individually, especially me personally. You know that, so I gotta spread my flowers while I can. You know what I mean? So
for sure, man. I appreciate that, and good to be here.
For sure, guys. Let's just get started with some NBA games. Last night was opening night. We had the Bucks ceremony take place. We had an impeccable showdown between Giannis and KD, but we know Giannis came out with the victory. And then you had the game afterwards with LeBron and the Lakers playing against Steph and the Warriors sneaking a win from the Staples Center, and you had Steph coming with a triple-double, which is very interesting for, a 6-foot shooting light skin guard. But hey, that's where we at. And it's special for Chicago just because in the Chi, this is opening night for us. We up in Detroit currently right now, have the game playing in the background. It's halftime now, actually. Pistons up 44-40. Which I don't understand in the world, but hey, it's opening night. We can't stress too much over it. But just get some reactions from you guys. I'll start with you, Drew. What was your reaction to the Bucks Nets game, the finale of it? I know we were recording yesterday in the middle of it. So how do you think about the finale of it? And what was your take also on the Lakers and Warriors? Because I mean, for me, watching that game, I saw that, the Lakers, Russ struggled a little bit, wasn't fully himself on the court. He's still trying to get adjusted to his team and the new style of offense. We saw AD in spurts play like AD for pretty much throughout the game. And I think the Calm app is working for LeBron because he's definitely looked a little springy and fresh yesterday. You know what I mean? Just Drew, tell me your thoughts about last night and what were your reactions to some of the games that were showcased?
In terms of the Bucks and Nets, just impressed by how the Bucks came out. Contrary to popular belief, I think 8 of the last champions actually won on opening night, which it seemed when I read that it didn't seem like I felt like it wasn't true because I always feel like that opening night kind of takes the wind, kind of that steam out of their group when they come out in the first game of the season. So to read that and to see how the Bucks played, I think that speaks volumes. Seems like Giannis picked up right where he left off. He's not going to let this team get complacent because he's not that type of player or person himself. So very impressed with that. In terms of the Lakers and Golden State Warriors, AD and LeBron look just fine. Little concerned with the bench, some of the shooting. Very impressed with the Warriors. The fact that they were able to get that win with Steph Curry not having the best of shooting nights, and for him to still get 10 boards and 10 assists, and be able to help them pull that win out was huge. Their bench, if their bench is going to be like this, man, then there might be some good substance to people being very high on what they could be when and if Klay comes back, and depending on what kind of Klay we get. But overall, it's fantastic opening night.
Yeah, aside from the infamous Insider crew, the NBA TNT crew coming back, being as hilarious as they are with the infamous rival of Chuck and Shaq. Since we know we have someone on the show that has had some close familiarity with those parties. So Scoop, talk about I don't know if you were able to see any of the inside the NBA crew last night, but knowing knowing them the way that you do, how did it really feel for them potentially on the outside looking in? Did it feel for them to actually be back in the show like that? Because they haven't been like that since I want to say when the playoffs end in June. No, I mean like June or July. Yeah. So talk about how did it feel to for them to be back in that space if you were able to talk to any of those guys regarding that, and just for you personally, what is it like to potentially see those guys back on the screen like that?
Well, I mean, I think that for many viewers, it's fun and games. For them, it's their job. I believe you can have fun at work, but I do believe that you need some time away from work, particularly because it's a seasonal job that's just more high profile and it pays more money. But I can say that just from various conversations over the years with them, they enjoy what they do, but just like any other relationship or just spending tons of close proximity, you love your downtime too. And I think that you saw them bring it. I think the relationship doesn't kind of die down. Like I think it's still there. If I can make any comparison, I do the basketball show on Instagram Live with Lisa Ann, and we ended it like right after I think the draft and free agency, which were like a week apart. And she and I still text, like each other's stuff on social and more, but we're inching into when we're probably getting ready to start again. So with that being said, I would imagine it's the same process as a matter of just reacclimating yourself, but you never lose that level of camaraderie.
No, that's real, bro. That's real. And they were obviously, covering pre-game, post-games, halftime shows for all the other games from last night at TNT. And they were at the Staples Center, where Staples Center is like the city of like Hollywood and sports when it comes to celebrities coming out, popping out, and seeing what the Star Laker franchise does. And like the Lakers, they always some way somehow get the stars. And the stars were aligned last night with LeBron and AD. You were known for interviewing Anthony Davis, and at one point in time, Anthony Davis told you that or LeBron might have told you that they may not be peanut butter and jelly like LeBron and D Wade were, but they're peanut butter and bananas. Do you think that's still a relevant, correlation as far as what we met or saw last night, or is it? Are they actually at that level where you could try the jelly one time for one time? May not be regular grape jelly, but maybe strawberry jelly or something like that. What? How do you view that rapport together, especially on the court for this year and last night?
Well, I think that the bubble championship in a lot of ways kind of solidified that level of peanut butter and banana sandwich. Or actually it would be peanut butter and jelly at that point. But some people say peanut butter and banana tastes better than peanut butter and jelly. I'm indifferent. I'm a fan of neither. But I understand the concept of what he was saying, and I think it was more level of cohesiveness. But I think when you look at this Lakers team now, it's a whole different ball game. You see some level of similarities between the bubble championship team and this team. And the familiar players not named LeBron and AD. They brought back Avery Bradley. They brought back Rajon Rondo. They brought back Dwight Howard. I sat down with Phil Handy, Lakers assistant, a couple weeks ago on my show at Bally Sports, and we talked about the level, the difference between last year's team and the season before. And one of the things that we both touched and agreed on was the notion of the defensive presence of both Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. And in some respects, we both agreed that DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard have the chance to kind of recreate what they were missing last season. And in some ways, you look at that Lakers team, Rondo coming back becomes both a presence on the floor, but also it recreates that presence as that OG that was missing in Jared Dudley. Just keeping things together. But I think that the Lakers' level of cohesiveness is not so much the lacking of LeBron and Anthony Davis trying to create that peanut butter jelly sandwich. I think it's how you put it all together, specifically when you have two talented playmakers on the floor in Russell Westbrook and LeBron. And listen, I think they'll figure it out. The greats usually do. It's just a process. I see, the first half of the season just trying to play through that. And then I think, that team is built for the playoffs. So I think that the open game becomes a younger team's ball game in the playoffs. So I'm interested to see how that works, particularly, and how they force other teams to play their style of basketball. If I can make any comparison, I think that the one that really stands out to me is the Spurs in the half court. I mean, these were old men playing YMCA basketball against young guys that thought they could just run them out the building, and quite the opposite happened.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But Spurs had hella talent on that squad that was very underrated as well. And people now, and that's what the Lakers have right now. They do have a lot of talent. One of those players is Melo, bringing the bromance that he has with LeBron, finally coming together after all these years to finally play and compete for a championship together. Melo has a history of being an assassin, score, kill you anywhere on the floor and on the court. But obviously over the years, his role has changed as far as what that looks like in some cases. I think his game can really translate with LeBron James, especially if he's running the offense, because LeBron James is such a facilitator and a great passer. At the same time, Russell Westbrook is ball dominant. He can pass, but at the same time, Russ needs his minutes as well, his time. How do you think Melo fits in to this constructed offense? And do you think his veteran savviness will be enough to help get the Lakers over the hump?
I think that Melo's been disrespected over the last 3 or 4 years. So I think people have to kind of remember that at one point nobody wanted to sign him, and a lot of that came from things that were going on in Houston. I think Portland revitalized him, but it took Damian Lillard being out and Melo just playing Melo basketball. I think in order for Melo to be successful, Melo has to be Melo. I don't really think I think oftentimes experts they put too much pizzazz on what it is. Like, it doesn't take that long to form a opening paragraph, a thesis, and a conclusion. I think that when it's all said and done, Melo knows how to play the game. I think sometimes you can overthink things too much, both on the analyst side, but also on the player side, trying to fit in. And I feel like what makes Melo brilliant and what makes Melo special is playing like Melo. Some days you're going to have 16 points. Some days you're going to have 2 points. Some days you're going to have 30 points. I think that when I look at Melo's game, I really think he's going to flourish in the second unit. And I also think that once certain guys come back, namely Taylor Horton-Tucker, Trevor Ariza, we can take a whole synopsis of that team and really break down what's what. But I think specifically to your question about Melo, pure scorer, one of the purest small forwards that I've ever seen in the NBA, alongside Larry Bird, Glenn Robinson. I put him in the same breath, just as his presence on the basketball floor. But I think when I look at Carmelo Anthony, I think those guys have experience being teammates on Team USA basketball. But now you have to do this for an 82-game season, and I think they'll figure it out. I'll add this: even where Melo may be lacking, I really have liked the chemistry that Rondo and Anthony Davis have had since they were teammates in New Orleans, and it's carried over. And I'm disappointed because I really feel like I'm disappointed because I'm wishing that DeMarcus Cousins was healthy 2 seasons ago and could really complete that triumvirate of Pelicans players that have found their way to Los Angeles and been successful. But that's not in the cards, and here we are now. But yeah, I definitely like the Lakers team. It's just a process, and I'm glad that Avery Bradley gets a chance to relive those moments with the Lakers, and hopefully can help Los Angeles win a championship this year.
Yeah, Melo has always been a good teammate from what we've heard. CJ McCollum, when he was in Portland, talked to me at All-Star Weekend and told me that he loved Melo and how he was a really good veteran presence in the locker room that they needed. Mm-hmm. And for him to bring that to the Los Angeles Lakers, I think is a very huge deal. And I think he'll be beneficial for that team as well. But I guess for me, one of the things that really opened up my eyes, not just from preseason, but transitioning even to last night's game, was the emergence of what Drew mentioned earlier as far as the Warriors bench. The Warriors drafted very well with getting Kuminga, as well as Jordan Poole. I actually think Jordan Poole is going to be a candidate for the most improved player of the year this year. And I think that's my vote for him to win that. Drew, I'll actually go to you on this. From what you've seen with this Warriors team, especially in preseason with players like Jordan Poole, how much of an impact can they really bring to the table on a team, especially with Klay Thompson not being out for a little longer, and you don't know what you're going to get out of Klay? How much of an impact can guys like Jordan Poole really be for this team coming off the bench?
I think they'll be huge. Jordan Poole's continued development, like you just said, he seems to be like everybody's, front runner for most improved player. That's all I see on social media is people talking about Jordan Poole. But Bielitsa was huge. If Otto Porter Jr. can give them good minutes, like this unit they outscored the Nets unit 51-29, I believe it was. So, I mean, the bench came in and did their job. That's going to be big for them. With Klay being out, it allows Steph to not have to shoulder so much of that load that he did last year. Like we all know what Steph is, but it never hurts to have some soldiers with you either. So I'm looking forward to them continuing that. Like I said earlier, if they're going to get that type of play from their bench, it's really going to be an interesting ride atop that Western Conference race.
Yeah, he scored 20 points. 16, I think, came in the first 3. Mm-hmm. Steve Kerr's very high on him. And I think becoming the second option so fast, as you mentioned, with Klay being out, sky's the limit. But I am curious to know what's going to happen when Klay comes back and where he'll fit. But I think he's, in a lot of respects, raised his value either way. I think that when you look at that Warriors team, I don't know if this is weird to you. I want to see them do well. But watching the Warriors, it kind of reminds me of that. I don't know if it was NBA 2K11 when Jordan was on the cover and you had to play all those different scenarios, those game modes. And like over the years, you saw guys that were like Cavaliers become Bulls or, go to different teams. And as I'm looking at that Warriors team, that's what it reminds me of. It's like you're seeing like Otto Porter. Wasn't Otto Porter on the Wizards, and then he was on the Bulls, then the Wizards, and now he's on Golden State. They definitely got him for his shooting. Mm-hmm. Poole is definitely in a good situation because of his shooting and just his ability to play off of Steph Curry, who I think had his first triple-double since 2016, when I think he's had 8 overall in his career. But I don't know. I like Jordan Poole. I want to see Kuminga do well, but he's still young. Mm-hmm. But I do think I stand by my point. It does remind me of like the Jordan competition in 2K. We're just seeing a lot of guys rotating. Like Steve Kerr was a Cav, then he became a Bull later on in his career. Ron Harper, Cavalier, he's a Bull. Like that's how I look at the Warriors now. I feel like they're coming to a point where there's like so many rotating pieces supporting Steph Curry on that roster.
Yeah. Yep. Trying to see which ones stick and which ones can help.
Right.
That train moving while it's, without one of his most notorious pieces in Klay Thompson.
And I guess the other thing is like, who says when Klay comes back, he's going to be the same player?
Yes, for sure. those are two, known to be debilitating injuries for a basketball player, man. So you right on the money with that one. You're right on the money with that one.
Yeah, we really won't know what Klay Thompson is until he officially comes back. And if all else fails, we know one thing he can do is shoot the rock. Like, he will let them up fly. So that's one thing we can always expect. But in other areas where the Warriors were at one point really known for is defense. That's why I think Klay is such a vital piece to this, because if Klay of old comes back, you're not really just getting a shooter from anywhere on the court, but you're also getting an elite defender who can guard their best player when needed, especially since Steph Curry is not a defensive player and he's quite small for his size, for a point guard. So that's something that they hope to bring back and hopefully get back. But that's why I think the importance of Jordan Poole and thinking those rotational guys are necessary, because Jordan Poole can improve, has improved his offensive skill set for sure. Kuminga brings that as well, but they have size and length that can somewhat keep up with these other opponents that they need, because Draymond can't do it all on his own.
No, he cannot.
Yeah, I think that might be my, Klay Thompson is one of the best shooters we've ever seen. He's coming off screens. He was at one point before these injuries huge on the defensive side of the ball. That might be the area where I'm most concerned about his recovery, because if he can't play, near those levels, which I don't think anybody should expect him to this soon, who's their perimeter defenders on this group? If there's one thing I'd be a little bit worried about moving forward, it's that.
And that's where you're missing a healthy Kelly Oubre.
Cool. Because then you got to depend on Wiggins.
Yep.
Yeah, and Otto too. Otto and a little bit of Otto Porter, which he didn't do much in Chicago. So
yeah, but I think Otto Porter will probably be used more so like, in this small ball world, he's gonna be like the front court player that they use.
And I also think you're looking at an Otto Porter that didn't really fit in a Boylan system. That I think is getting it to the point in his career where you use him as a viable role player on a championship team. Like, as he gets older, you'd expect the Nets or the Lakers to give him smaller deals to come in and produce. Like, he's at that point. As long as you can shoot in the NBA, you could stay. But I think that Bulls team that he was on was Zach LaVine's team, but this was pre-Lonzo and pre-DeRozan, and I think that Bulls team is going through right now what the Pelicans are going through, just a youth movement, and they're figuring out pieces.
Okay. We're going to transition right to the Bulls with that point. But right before we do that, as we stick to the Warriors, I want to talk about how the Warriors did sign Gary Payton II to his deal. You had an interview on your Scoop B radio, podcast with Gary Payton, and you talked, and you guys talked about the importance of seeing his son succeed in the league and how much support he's really giving him throughout his NBA journey.
Yes, I did.
How did that go? What is Gary Payton's thoughts on his son's journey, and what advice may he have given to go as he goes through this new path?
That interview seems like it was a year ago. We did it like in March, and so much has changed, just in life as well as just like this year. It feels like this year is longer than a year. But in answer to your question directly, I mean, he's definitely proud of his son and all that he's accomplished. I know that the Warriors had cut him and then they brought him back. So, him playing for the Warriors, particularly being from Oakland, I'm sure he's happy about, meaning Gary Payton. But I definitely think that one of the good things about Gary Payton as an NBA legend overall, as a Hall of Famer, is there are many people younger than you, Josh, who may not even know Gary Payton or his significance, and may have been born when Gary Payton was a member of the Bucks and know nothing about the Seattle Sonics, Sean Kemp, and others. So I'm glad that he's getting his just due, and it kind of helps when you have some products named after your name, if you catch what I'm saying. But I definitely think that GP it should be pleased about his son, and his son being a second generation ball player. Like you look at that, like we kind of look at that like that's so normal now, but it wasn't always normal. Like you look at the advantage that players have in being second generation ball players. Like Steph Curry was better than his dad. Kobe was better, God rest his soul, than his dad. Klay Thompson, his dad Michael played for the Lakers. So I think nowadays, for many players, making it to the NBA was their ticket out. Now basketball for their offspring is kind of like the golf country club. It's expected that you're going to make it, but their circumstances are different. The sports medicine is different. Even us talking about Carmelo Anthony and LeBron at their age, like 36, 37, and still dominating and having multiple primes, like that's unheard of. So like, even if Bronny doesn't become who his father was, he's had the case study or the experience to know what it's like to be in different cities, to control your own destiny. And so when you look at Gary Payton comparatively, Gary Payton the second, I'm sure he has seen a lot. Same with Tim Hardaway Jr. has seen a lot. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that really is, and this really is tough to do, to live up to that expectation, especially when you're coming after someone that has so much made such an impact on the game. I mean, especially when you think about Michael Jordan, his kids. You know how that came out. But speaking of Jordan, we can talk about how he commented about his former team over the offseason. He talked about how the Bulls made some pretty big splashes, and they're going to look pretty good in the East. And this opening night for them right now, as we're recording, they're currently playing against the Pistons. You were one of the first original reporters to report on Lonzo Ball coming to Chicago. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Of course. Give the credit where it's due. And as one of the first reporters to report on that, obviously came to fruition. And the Bulls, might have fumbled it a little bit because they're being investigated for it. But nevertheless, he's here in Chicago, along with Zach LaVine, along with DeMar DeRozan, and you have talked to Zach LaVine. And have a rapport with him. Talk about what is the real expectation or ceiling for this Bulls team, because obviously experts constantly try to say, the Bulls are not going to do well. Defense is an issue, etc. They may have to be fighting for a play-in tournament, but I'm thinking if the Bulls are fighting for a play-in tournament like they did last year, and that's with missing Zach LaVine for half of the second half of the season due to COVID, that's with getting a Vucevic in a trade that didn't allow him to get full time to acclimate to the team, along with lesser talent. I don't know how you can't see this Bulls team take things to the next level, especially the way that they performed in the preseason. I know it's preseason, but it's still positive signs. So talk about what is your ceiling? What do you think the ceiling is for the Bulls this season?
Well, I'm petty, so I'll say first. I was the first reporter to say that Lonzo Ball the Chicago Bulls, and I told you that in January, February, but that's neither here nor there. He is a Bull. I told you I'm petty. But when I look at the Bulls, I do see them as anywhere from 5th to 8th. And I think it's because the Eastern Conference, in my mind, and it's still very early, it's very competitive. You look at the top 4. So you look at Philly, you look at, and in no particular order, people get how they get. So in no particular order, Philly, Milwaukee, and then you look at the other 2. You look at Boston. And then I feel like 4 through 8 gets interesting. Like, I think when I look at the Bulls, I put the Bulls and the Wizards in a similar category. Like, I think the Bulls and the Wizards are 2 teams that don't get enough. And I left out the Atlanta Hawks. I apologize. So so to start from the beginning, rewind the tape. The top 4 teams in my mind in the Eastern Conference are the Bucks, the Nets, the Sixers, the Hawks in no particular order. 5 through 8 gets interesting. I think that when you look at the Bulls, I think in a world where everybody is on the Kyrie bandwagon and the Nets and what's going to happen there, and then you look at the fact that the Bucks are still a chance, but people don't give them credit, and everybody was willing to just give the Nets the red carpet treatment. And I think the fact that the Hawks are in Atlanta and not in New York or LA, I think you look at Trey, and I think he proved a lot of doubters wrong in the playoffs, as did Giannis. But when I look specifically at the Bulls, there's some questions that people are asking, like, will LaVine stay long term? I think as much as people pay attention to LaVine and pay attention to Lonzo Ball, and they pay attention to DeMar DeRozan, I don't think that they give Nikola Vucevic his just due a lot. He doesn't get mentioned in the same breath. He's a good problem to have on your team roster, particularly when you have a dominant point guard picking and popping with a big man. So I think that Lonzo Ball is in a situation where he can be his true and unfiltered and unadulterated self, playing in a system that benefits him under the head coach. So I do like the fit, but I think there are some questions that still need to be answered, particularly as it relates to, can LaVine stay healthy all season? I want him to stay healthy. I think that when you look at that Bulls team, one thing that I really do like that I also think doesn't get enough attention is the addition of Alex Caruso, both defensively and from beyond the arc. It helps them immensely. And what I like specifically about Lonzo Ball coming to Chicago, as much as the Bulls were pushing at the trading deadline to get Lonzo Ball, they didn't have to give up Kobe White to the Pelicans to do so, which allows Kobe White, God bless the dead, Kobe White, to kind of move around and not have to be a primary distributor and could just focus on scoring. And I think that's going to be great for him. I like it. And I really like the Bulls' upside. And you didn't ask me, but I'll tell you again, I like the Wizards because I think there's so much growth and so much exponentially that can happen specifically. I think Kyle Kuzma is going to have a breakout year this year. If you look at some of those guys that were on the Lakers when LeBron got there, everybody who's gone there has done well elsewhere, specifically guys like Brandon Ingram. So when I look at the Washington Wizards, I was with KCP a couple of weeks ago, and we talked just about fit. We talked about just adjusting. I like his role as the OG now within the Washington system. I like Spencer Dinwiddie, and I'm just concerned about his health long term. But I definitely think that Aaron Holiday will benefit in Washington in the same ways that Justice Winslow will benefit with the Clippers, minutes-wise. So, yeah, I think the Bulls and the Wizards are two of the most underreported, ignored teams, particularly in the NBA's Eastern Conference. So I think the Bulls can go anywhere from 5 to 8, and I think that's a fair assessment because we're still building out, but I still think that the Bulls have the chance to become Lob City Western Conference Midwest. Lob City Midwest branch. I like it.
Yeah. To your point, I mean, after Milwaukee and Brooklyn, man, I myself have trouble saying with any confidence what actually 3 through 8 could look like, because I think I love Trae Young, man. I love the Hawks. I'm a Jimmy Butler stan for life. Sometimes to my demise, but it's really a jumble, man, in my mind. And I think that if it's going to take some luck, but I think there's a world that exists where the Bulls are able to creep up and host a playoff series. Now things have to go well. The defense has to be better than what a lot of people expect it to be. I myself think it's going to be above average. I don't think it's going to be as big of as an albatross as people might expect it to be. Billy Donovan hasn't coached a team that's been less than 12th in defensive rating. They've got some players who are very athletic on the wings. They got players now who can fight through screens at the point of attack, and Alex Caruso, Troy Brown Jr. can do it. Lonzo Ball can do it to a certain extent. So I'm really confident. I'm really flying high. This first half of this Pistons Bulls game is kind of a reminder of, things we're still settling in. We're just now settling in, but I'm excited for where they can go. I'm not mad at all, Scoop, about your 5 through 8 ranking. It's all opinion. It's all subjective, man. But I can definitely see them creeping up into that 4th spot. I appreciate you bringing up the Wizards, because the Wizards and the Knicks, before certain deals were made, I was looking at the Bulls like, oh, they're definitely better than these two teams. But then I had to kind of take a step back and look and see what the Wizards were getting in KCP and Kuzma and Dinwiddie. What the Knicks were able to do in getting Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier, and what that can do for that offense, where it's not just having to go through Julius Randle all the time. So it's a really good competition out there, man.
Well, I'll say there's 2 things. One, there were rumblings that Damian Lillard wanted to come to New York, and those who will remain nameless within the Knicks organization shared with me that they, going into free agency, heard, just like everybody else, that Lillard had interest, but they didn't say his name because that he plays for another team. So I said, "Oh, you talking about the guy on chairs, the guy that got bars?" They say, yeah, the guy that got bars, yeah. And so you kind of saw this Ben Simmons, Damian Lillard conversation unfold, and from all intents and purposes, the Sixers still do have an interest in Lillard, but ultimately, scared money don't make no money, as the great Meek Mill said. I'm sure other people said it too. And the Knicks went elsewhere. I know that this offseason, Kawhi was a target. I know, that was free agency. I know that Kawhi was a Nuggets target, but ultimately he stayed in with the Clippers, which I think was a smart move. But I feel like the Knicks played the long game because they were able to re-sign Randall while bringing back Derrick Rose. It was what was familiar, and Rose and Kemba Walker have a lasting, friendship over the years. But I think that ultimately what's going to go down depends on what Lillard wants to do in the future, what Simmons wants to do in the future. But I think, I have no news to report. I think that more than anything else, what you're seeing just with guys on teams is you still need 3 stars in order to compete. The Sixers will have to give up a lot to get Lillard, and I don't know that the Blazers have enough that entices Philadelphia. And I know that's not your question. I know you asked me something else, and I started going on a tangent. But I think that the Knicks are in a situation where, in some respects, I think many people were surprised at how well that they did, and I'm concerned whether they'll be able to replicate that this season. I think that the Knicks, I don't think I know statistically or numbers-wise, the Knicks and the Hawks had the same record. So they were both the 4 and the 5 seed in the NBA's Eastern Conference. And Randall got quiet. And I think the thing about the Hawks that I really enjoyed watching was, everybody pays attention to Trae Young. But Trae Young got a lot of people paid this offseason. And, I think in a world where everybody likes premium scoring from a point guard, he still found a way to get his teammates involved. And everybody is paid. John Collins got paid. Kevin Huerter got paid. Nate McMillan got the interim tag taken off his title, and he's the head coach. And I really think that Hawks team, when you really look at it, like Nate McMillan was really the key that started the engine. Unfortunately, Lloyd Pierce was let go at the All-Star break, but he really revitalized that team because of the defensive philosophy that he embraced. And I kind of am glad that he got the last laugh with the Pacers, who let him go. There was a lot of stuff behind the scenes, particularly as it relates to Oladipo and his eventual departure, and also their owner, who's one of the oldest owners in professional sports, North American sports, who they've had a hard time kind of connecting with younger coaches from in interviews, from what I've been told. So I'm glad for Nate McMillan, and I'm glad to see him and Trae Young and everybody else get their just due. The Knicks, I have kind of a wait and see approach. I think they're like a star away from at least, like they're like a Kawhi type of player or a Paul George type of player really competing. And I don't know yet if RJ Barrett is that star that they're looking for within house.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. But at the same time, you keep bringing up Philly. I don't know. I don't know how far they can go without Ben Simmons. Obviously, we could transition to what's going on, the fiasco, dramatic movie that's taking place in Philadelphia, where I just feel like, you had the beginning scene, the intro, where you talk about Ben Simmons' happiness in Philly at one point and how they were, trying to get past the second round of the playoffs. And then you get into the middle of it where you talk about the specific dramas that's taking place. And now we're like at like the top of the plot, like the accelerating point of the plot, where all hell's about to break loose, and we're about to eventually slow down into the reality ending of the chapter, right? So obviously Ben Simmons, wasn't talking to the team over the offseason. Everything was being communicated through Rich Paul. Didn't want to talk to his teammates, isolated himself, didn't really want to come to training camp, but reportedly saw that his money was being taken away from him, so he wanted to come back just so he could get paid. Then he gets kicked out of practice because he wasn't engaged. In the first practice he practiced in, he reportedly had a cell phone. And according to our guy Landon Buford, he, after he got kicked out of practice, dude went to a strip club. I don't know if Kylie met him there. I don't know if one of the Kardashians met him there. I think it's Kylie that he's dating. Whichever one he's dating, I don't know if they met up there. I don't know if he was just trying to relieve himself. I don't know what's going on. But clearly that situation in Philly seems far from being repaired, and it's about time for a divorce. We talked with the guys yesterday in the first report and how this is very in its own way Jimmy Butler-esque, but also I think it's a combination of James Harden-esque as well, where it's like you want out, but in a way your rebellion is done in a different way. Where James Harden really didn't want to be around, or when he did come around, he came fat, showed up out of shape, the training camp, and forced his hand that way, while Jimmy Butler actually still did his duty on a day-to-day basis, even though he just made it publicly known he just didn't want to be there. It's like, I don't know how to make of this Ben Simmons situation, except for the fact that I think it's clearly at the point now where something has to give. And I think, Ben Simmons really just has to go, although Philly wants to get, the best deal possible for him. I don't know if you can get the best deal when you're talking about a superstar for a superstar, and your superstar really doesn't want to show up and brings the rep that he is bringing currently.
Couple things. One, we all work out with our cell phones in our pockets. We do. You'd be surprised. There are players that I know that they're in practice. Yo, school, what's up? I'm in practice, and they have their phones in their pocket. Like, I think that gets. I get it, but that I just want to put that out there because I think people are making too much of that. So that's one. Two. At the end of the day, Ben Simmons wants to be traded. Ben Simmons is doing whatever he can. He's showing up so he still gets paid. He's just doing less. I think that the Jimmy Butler comparison would make sense if the reports are true that he went in and destroyed guys in practice and then with a Rolex watch on and went home are true. I think a lot more people would in this instance respect Ben Simmons if that's what happened, and as far as what's being reported, that's just not the case. 3, unfortunately, when the new collective bargaining agreement is constructed, cases like Ben Simmons, cases like Anthony Davis, cases like James Harden have all Ben Simmons. The story's still being written, but in the case of Harden and Anthony Davis, owners are going to have something to say about that when a new collective bargaining agreement is drawn up. And I think that, unfortunately, Ben Simmons is going to have to make a decision whether he wants to play or not. But I think that showcasing his talent gives people fresh set of eyes to see what he can do. But I mean, here's the thing: like, people act like Ben Simmons is like the 18th man off the bench. Like, he's legitimate. He legitimately has a skill set similar to LeBron and Magic Johnson. I just think Philadelphia and Ben Simmons have run his course, and I mean, this is not really news. Last offseason, Ben Simmons wanted out, as I reported. So
yeah, you were the first to report that as well. I meant to, put that out there, sir.
I was first. But
you were first. Yes.
I think that ultimately, when it comes down to fit, Minnesota fits. But in their conversations, from what I'm told, the starting point on the Sixers side is D'Angelo Russell, and Minnesota didn't want to give that up. So you look at Cleveland. Colin Sexton would fit Joel Embiid, but you'd probably have to include a contract like Kevin Love. I'm not sure if Philly wants that. Then you look at Indiana, Malcolm Brogdon and Ben Simmons. To me, similar skill set, very different as far as their pecking order in the NBA. I think that that would mutually benefit both his visibility and the chance for Philadelphia to win. But I also think that when you look at this situation with the Sixers and with Ben Simmons, if you've seen some of my tweets, I've said Ben Simmons' thoughts are his thoughts, Rich Paul's thoughts are his own. Yep. And I can tell you that, Rich Paul has become increasingly diligent in playing middleman, but ultimately I've heard that there's a level of frustration that he has with Ben because there needs to be some type of resolution. Like, even in a situation with Anthony Davis, right? Anthony Davis still showed up to work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You look at James Harden. James Harden showed up to media day because he wasn't trying to give him no money. I think this sets a new bar where Ben Simmons does not care about the money. Is get me the hell out of here. Mm-hmm. You've not seen that. So it's different.
Very true.
Even when you look at Kyrie Irving, he's not afraid to give up money to take a stand. We'll see if that lasts. From what I know, it could last the rest of the season. We'll see if he changes his tune, because even when you looked at Ben Simmons, he changed his tune and he showed up. So, yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I think today is marks 4 months since that Game 7 against the Hawks. And to your point, I mean, Ben Simmons is still he still can be a very important piece to a winning team. This is a former Rookie of the Year, 2-time All-Defensive First-Team player. He just, by that same token, though, a lot of the fire and brimstone aimed his way is because numbers-wise, he doesn't appear to be improving. It's clear in his playoff averages. This dude has gone down every year he's been in the playoffs. Points, shot attempts, free throw percentages, at an all-time low, I believe, last season. So I think that's where this is coming from. People not believing that he's putting in the work to get better, and then using that to kind of marry what they're seeing on the court with the numbers that he's putting up. So I mean, you said he wanted to be out of Philly for a while now, at least going back to last year. He can do very well for himself to just obviously get up out of Philly, go somewhere where he feels like maybe not that he's being catered to, but that it's just a better situation for him. We've seen guys go to places and kind of remake themselves. The Chris Webber going to Sacramento, coincidentally. Mm-hmm. So I'm just looking for that relationship to end and to see what Ben Simmons does with the new opportunity once he gets it. because I do still. He's very talented. He is similar to LeBron, but from where I sit, it seems that he doesn't have that drive to take himself from being a perennial all-star to a perennial all-NBA player.
Hence why I said skill set, not talent.
True.
Those are two different things. Skill set and potential. You know, when I pre-COVID and even during COVID, I was making trips back and forth to Philly, and when Brett Brown was still there, and I remember in the playoffs 2 seasons ago, they shifted Ben to the 3-4 position, 4, because they still had Tobias at the 3. Shake Milton was at the 1. And I asked Brett Brown just his thought process as it related to seeing any similarity between, Ben shifting over to the 3 or the 4 as LeBron moving to the small forward position in Miami. And he felt that there was some level of similarity between the two, specifically having sat on the bench as an assistant coach with the Spurs when they played the Heat in the finals. But he felt that he's always said that, Ben is still young. But I think in some aspects, in my opinion, I think that Brett Brown stayed for a very long time, almost like a Jeff Fisher type role with the Titans. And I think in my opinion, Ben has become very enabled as it related to doing things his way. And I believe that by the time Doc Rivers came in, he was used to that and did not want to particularly. I think that Doc Rivers' system benefits a Joel Embiid better than it does a Ben Simmons, personality-wise and style-wise. Mm-hmm. And I think that Ben has been enabled for a very long time. And I believe that I feel like Doc Rivers could turn out to be one of the best things or the worst things that ever happened to Ben Simmons.
It's interesting that you bring up that point of the coaching transition. You've been in contact with Sixers front office before, have a good rapport with them. And there's always been conversation about how Ben Simmons is messing up this. He's the main problem for all this drama. But how much of a role does the Sixers play in this as well? Because if it like you say, it's true that he's been wanting out for a while, going back to last season. The Sixers, even though they're looking for the best deal and they have every right to do that, they also have the ability to make sure that the culture and the structure is correct, so that way it can cater to the players that they have. Do you think they handled the situation, well? Could they have done better with it? Because two sides to every story.
It's a loaded answer, but this is how a loaded question, and it's a layered answer. So this is what I'll say. One, I believe that the 76ers' best chance to have won a championship was in 2019 when Kawhi guided the Toronto Raptors to the NBA Finals.
Yeah,
that's one. Two, the deck of cards that Elton Brand was given after that whole Colangelo scenario, I think he did the best that he could. But I think in a lot of respects, he bears the burden of blame. And by that, I mean this. Jimmy Butler staying in Philly would have allowed Philly to figure this whole thing out. In that, I think Jimmy and Embiid clicked well together. I also think that when it was all said and done, Philly did not have the option to retain Jimmy Butler, and JJ Redick wanted out. And in return, they ended up retaining the services of Tobias Harris. And I think in a last-minute ditch effort, they added Al Horford to the pot. And I feel like Al Horford wasn't what Embiid needed. And in fact, somebody like Jimmy Butler staying is what he needed. And somebody like Kevin Love would be the perfect fit for Philly. And so that's why I say it's very layered in my response, because I believe that accountability has lacked on the coaching side with Brett Brown, because I believe that Brett Brown does not respond well to very assertive players. And you read that however you want without me actually saying it by name. I'm somebody, so I have to watch what I say. I think Jimmy Butler just didn't fit that mold. And I think that ultimately Tobias Harris did fit that mold, and I have no problem with him. I just think he fits better personality-wise with Brett Brown than, say, a Jimmy Butler. And I think that J.J. Redick got tired of it, and he bounced. So I've said a lot, but I ultimately think that if maybe there was a different coach in place back then, Butler would have stayed, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But then again, had he stayed, the Heat wouldn't have went to the finals.
That's true. That's very true.
That's crazy to think about, for sure. And aside from, and you briefly touched on this as well, aside from, the Ben Simmons story in the NBA, you have another situation with Kyrie Irving and what's going on with Brooklyn. Now, you know me, you're always my go-to guy for this because of your rapport with Kyrie personally and being able to actually elaborate and the understanding of who he is and what his mindset is when it comes to him and his circle. And in previous conversations that as regard to Kyrie, you've been spot on with that. You don't get enough credit for it. Even back to when he was leaving Boston to come to Brooklyn. His shoulder situation. I forgot exactly the term.
Thoracic bursitis.
Yes, thoracic bursitis. You've been pretty spot on with this reporting. You don't get enough credit for. So, obviously you could give your flowers for that. But you've always been a good contact person as far as analyzing what's really going on within the Kyrie Irving camp. This vaccination situation has been, a big story with him. There's all types of reports about, him potentially retiring because of the situation, or rumors of potentially Brooklyn maybe wanting to make a move to get rid of him because of the situation in order to keep their championship hopes alive, especially now that James Harden is not a guarantee that he's staying long term because he didn't sign an extension. Just tell me, and for our audience out there, really from what you've communicated or reported regarding the situation, what's really going on with Kyrie? Like, what's really the in-depth situation that people aren't really talking about, given the reality behind what he's really going through right now with this COVID situation, what he's really thinking in the future, as far as not retiring per se, but is he actually going to want to stay? Is he actually going to be able to stay in Brooklyn for the long term? I know he did an Instagram live addressing some of these issues, but talk about what you reported or communicated with his camp, and what have you gathered from that scenario?
He doesn't want to play because he doesn't want to take the vaccine, but the vaccine has less to do with being a nonconformist or anti-vaxxer from the way that I understand it. It has more to do with the notion of what happens long term. And that's more of I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but these are many players' thoughts. And from my understanding, he has issues with the long-term effects, and even down to how it affects women in childbirth and their cycles, and specifically as it relates to the antibodies that are injected into you, and how it actually fights off symptoms. I think that for Kyrie, the money is only small change. I mean, the crazy thing is like $350,000 a game. That's house money that he's missing. But the way that I know him, have gotten to know him, will continue to know him, and those around him, he stays true to his word and he stays true to his principle. And I don't really see him returning. But that has more to do with the mandates locally. And, I've heard rumblings of a potential type of lobbying to the acting governor. We'll see if that happens and if that's fruitful for him. But, as it stands now, he's not playing. And, yeah.
Well, go ahead, Drew.
No, I was gonna say it's quite the situation, man. I work in healthcare, man. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions, man. You can't tell another human being what and what not to inject into their own body, man. We all got our own views. Man, if we could just zoom out, man, it's just so much going on. It's like a microcosm of this country in general, man. I know Adam Silver came out during his the State of the League address, I think, and was saying that he wished that there could have been an agreement with the NBPA about just a mandate in general for the vaccine to be given out, and in that light, I wish there was a certain kind of mandate given in our country for that. But again, can't force things on people, man. I just live in this world. I wasn't given it, but I really want to see how this story plays out. And I think Irving is, if I'm not mistaken, if he ends up sitting out this year, those $350,000 missed game checks will end up totaling somewhere in the ballpark of $20 million. So it's a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. But like Scoop said, Kyrie has been true to his word. You talk about his role in the league as well, serving within the Players Association, even going throughout the pandemic. He was one of the most vocal people that talked about not playing in the bubble because of the racial riots that have been taking place and the social injustice that's been going around, and him wanting to focus on that. He felt like that took away from basketball. He's been very vocal about his community work, but I think that's why I also kind of feel bad for Kyrie, because as much as people can question his intelligence, as much as people can question his mental state and if he's unstable and all of those different things, he cannot neglect the fact that aside from him having pretty much an historic season last year with a 50-40-90 guy, before he was hurt and couldn't play in the playoffs, he also has been a very big advocate in community service, and has put his money where his mouth is. He's given to all these different social groups, and he's backed up his word. So as much as you want to come for Kyrie per se, because basketball wise, he doesn't give you what you ideally want. I mean, I would want a Nets and Lakers finals that featured Kyrie Irving in it. But if he doesn't play, we can't blackball him out the league per se just because he doesn't follow the toot to his own horn. I mean, a prime situation that really comes to my mind when you think about this is a Craig Hodges, someone who has been very spoken about social injustice, protested against the flag, things of that sort, and wore I want to say that's called a dashiki to the White House when they won their championship. I think it was the second championship, and he never got to play again in the league. There's a price to pay for being a social activist for sure. Mm-hmm. However, we shouldn't condemn them or blackball them out the league because they don't go with the narrative or the same route of achieving that justice as the majority of what a professional league would do. And I think it's very unfortunate that he gets tagged with that, especially since,
I think a lot of it is a lot of people don't like him. And I think that sometimes, as much as he means well, I think his delivery is not always received the right way by people, and so when it's not received, it appears as if he's tone deaf, and he has a good heart. I just think he's misunderstood, and I think that it goes back to all that flat earther stuff that people still bring up, and I think unfortunately, I think many people don't know Kyrie. Like many people, and allow me to explain. Like I'm blessed to be a conduit to many players as a journalist, where I'm able to tell people stories. I wouldn't say that I'm best friends with athletes, but I have a great deal of access, which allows me to tell stories that people want to share with me. But I wouldn't say the general public knows these guys. And so, like, I'll use this example. J.R. Smith, everybody attributes Hennessy to him. And I know that he began to be very annoyed and offended that was consistently brought up because there was so much more to him. And from what he says, he doesn't drink like that. So stop attaching my name to that. And it's like no matter how many championships he wins or that he transitioned to golf, there'll be a group of people who just don't like him. And that's everybody's prerogative. They have the chance to, or they have the opportunity to choose. And I think, comparatively for Kyrie, the flat earther thing is something he's going to have to live with. But I also think that people will get amnesia as it relates to the good that he does, but you also can't justify things that he's not doing or things that are not rule abiding. Like you can't say if he's not following a rule, you can't justify it. Yeah, well, he does this. Like a rule is a rule. Those are two separate things. That still doesn't negate that he's a good guy. I just think in this instance he's made a choice. But I'll add this. The same people who are pro-choice about Kyrie Irving as it relates to the vaccine, I need them to have that same energy as it relates to women's right to choose in the state of Texas.
Yes, sir.
True point. I feel it. Like drop mic. All right. So, we're wrapping up in a little bit. I want to transition to the NBA 75th anniversary team. They started putting out 25 players last night, which featured, the looks of see if I can pull it up real quick. I had it up. Yeah. So it features greats like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They added Giannis to the list, Charles Barkley, Nate Archibald, Bob Cousy, Dave Cowens, Kevin Durant, Dr. J, George Gervin, Al Greer, added James Harden to the list, Elvin Hayes, Jerry Lucas, Moses Malone, Kevin McHale, George Mikan. You got Steve Nash. You got Dirk Nowitzki, Hakeem Olajuwon, Bob Pettit, Willis Reed, Oscar Robertson, David Robinson, Bill Russell, and John Stockton. That was released Thursday night. But they just released today, right before we started this recording, another 25, day 2 of 25 players for this 75-player team. And the list is Paul Arizin, Rick Barry, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Clyde Drexler, Tim Duncan, Patrick Ewing, Walt Frazier, Kevin Garnett, John Havlicek, Allen Iverson, Magic Johnson, Sam Jones, Michael Jordan, Karl Malone, Robert Parrish, Chris Paul, Scottie Pippen, Bill Sharman, Isaiah Thomas, Nate Thurmond, Wes Unseld, Bill Walton, Jerry West, and James Worthy. I see you have that special guest.
Somebody want to say hi. Say hi, Percy.
What's up,
Percy? What's up, Percy?
Hey.
Percy.
Hey. It's a lot of names on that list.
Yes.
And I think ultimately somebody's going to be mad. And some guys, I feel like this. Do the same 50 from the 97, 98 year automatically go? Like, that's the part that I'm interested in. So far, it seems like most people are still there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's hard to really weigh in until we see this last group of 25. So we can, like you just said, we can parse through. Okay, who was left off that this list that was on that original one? You know, what new guys have joined the company of these other great players. Yeah, so it's just something I'm looking forward to. They're doing the next 25 tomorrow, right? The last 25, last group.
Right.
TNT on Thursday.
All right.
Kyle brought up a good point last night, though. Why did they do it now? Why didn't they just wait until like All-Star Weekend or something like that, where you can actually truly, give reverence to it?
They need
Do you know anything about that?
They need ratings. Like Percy, they need ratings.
How old is Percy?
He is 4.
4 years old. It's a beautiful dog, man.
Thank you.
Most definitely. Well, yeah, that's a good point. Ratings always, always play a role in it. But yeah, I'm interested to see what this last 25 players list is going to be. And I think there's an underlying message as far as the players they released at the times that they did, which shows which ones is more the upper tier potentially. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I think they kind of try to combine like the best of the best with like Hall of Famers, but they wouldn't be part of the original 50. I don't know how they came up with these lists, but whatever the case may be, hopefully tomorrow they'll have the rest of the 25 and we can actually fully see, give a full rating as far as how good this list really is. And if, if there are changes to what we could make to it, it's going to be very interested to see, what that looks like. And before we get out of here, man, Scoop is over here in the philanthropic realm. Scoop B Village. So Scoop, talk about what is that? What is the nonprofit? How did you come up with, and how did it all come about?
It takes a village. For me, having grown up in both New Jersey and New York City, basketball was the connector of dots between both sides of the Hudson for me. Whether playing, whether announcing games, and being introduced to it on on the Harlem side of it through grassroots basketball. And for me, it just made sense. Even the church dynamic and being in public speaking and things of that sort. For me, it just made sense to soft launch the mentorship aspect of things that were passed on to me, called Scoop B Village. We started the paperwork process actually last year and kind of wanted to wait on some things and make some things move. And now was the time to move that as we've ushered in, the first half or the beginning of the NBA season. And what a great time to do that, particularly because many people are looking to get into broadcasting and media training and things of that sort. So I and Percy is too excited to make that happen. And you can get more information on Scoop B Village at scoopbvillage.org. Make donations and things of that sort. We'll be doing some media training with kids aged 7 to 18, where we teach the fundamentals of broadcasting, how to ask the right questions, timing, and things of that sort. Some of the things that I do every single day. So I definitely am thankful to have the platform to do it. And we're just growing. So it'll actually be launched full steam ahead this summer, where we'll be doing some media training classes, but we soft launched it this week and glad to talk about it.
Awesome.
I feel that. I'm glad that, I'm happy for you. Always doing big things out here. And I know obviously you got the WARR Media family here to help support in any way, shape, or form. I'm here to help support in any way, shape, or form. Because as much as we, are striving to do what we do in our careers and everything, it's all about giving back. And we want to for sure be a part of that and give back what's been blessed and given to us. So, we got you support 100% all the whole way. And if you need anything from us, we're here to help in any way, shape, or form, for sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for real. Congrats on that. Before we head out of here, though, WARR Media just put out a season preview piece that features yours truly and Drew and other writers or contributors to WARR Media regarding the upcoming season. You can check that out on WARR Media Substack. We answer all types of questions as far as the vibe of Chicago and the other topics we talked about: Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, who could be contending in the West and Eastern Conference Finals, you name it. Check it out right now on WARR Media Substack, WARR Ready, and you can check out this version of Runnin with WARR on YouTube, all podcast platforms, Anchor.fm, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, you name it, WARR on Anchor. And you can also, like I said, catch us on YouTube, WARR Media on YouTube. You can also check us out on our social, WARR Media, Instagram and Twitter. You see the tags on here. Look what Drew did. Follow the maestro, doing some great things. Not just with WARR Media, but other venues as well. Check out his latest work. Look what Drew did on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow me on social media, Instagram and Twitter, Josh M. Hicks Media, and the legend Scoop B. Where can everybody find you on your social?
Scoop B on Twitter, Scoop_B on Instagram and Snapchat, and subscribe to the Scoop B Radio podcast, available on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, TuneIn app, Stitcher app, iHeartRadio, or simply by visiting ScoopBRadio.com. We've had anybody from Mark Cuban, DJ Khaled, Shaq, Charles Barkley, Pete Sampras, the voice of Siri, all on Scoop B Radio. So yeah, man, 5 to 10 million streams annually, and just continue to make it happen. But also make sure you check in with everything I'm doing at Bally Sports, my Scoop B Intel segments at least once a week, and interviews every week as well. So constantly making new things happen, and yeah, man, more than anything else, thanks for having me and Percy to discuss Scoop B Village and everything going on. ScoopBVillage.org is where you can find more information about that as well.
Yes, sir. Most definitely, man. We appreciate you coming on the show. Absolutely. Always good to have you and your knowledge, your intel. Obviously, we're going to continue to have you, bring you back on. And hopefully, you get a chance to come to the show and even on business, we'll catch up on some stuff, man.
Yeah, I snuck in back in August, but I was in and out. I had to do some business with Bally and Stadium. You can also check out my work at Stadium as well. Stadium is at the United Center. So yeah, we definitely have to sit down and break bread sooner rather than later.
Yeah, most definitely. And since you mentioned Stadium, we got to give a shout out to our guy Cameron Smith, who's doing great stuff for Stadium.
That's my dude.
Yeah, for sure. All the shows that he's doing, not just from basketball to baseball, football, you name it. He's doing his thing over there, and and that Bally Stadium family is doing big things. So definitely much love and support for y'all. Keep doing y'all thing. Obviously, you, my brother, keep doing your thing. Always glad to have you on the show. And y'all know where to catch us, man. We ain't going nowhere. We always running. So, stay in tune. We got more stuff coming your way. We'll be back next week. And just keep bouncing.